Hello, marvelous people. Autism spectrum disorder has been on the news a lot lately. You're seeing all kind of information on social media about it. So I wanted to make an informative video about autism spectrum disorder. And I do know a little bit about biological mechanisms because I have a PhD in pharmacology. So I also did a little research to add some new ideas to this video that I think will be helpful in not only understanding autism, but understanding how you can take your health in your own responsibility and think kind of creatively about how you can help yourself and others around you in the future. So autism spectrum disorder is a condition related to brain development that affects how people perceive others and socialize with them. It includes conditions that were once thought to be separate, like Asperger's syndrome, and some other childhood disintegrative disorders. So there's a lot of different genes that account for the genetic susceptibility of autism, but even if you have that genetic susceptibility, there's a lot of factors that can promote the development of autism, which you can read right here, and I'll briefly go through in the next few slides. So as I said, there is a lot of different genes that are associated with autism. However, it's a mixture of having mutations or having these genes in your family line while also having other factors present within your life or while your mom was pregnant for you that can lead to the progression of autism. So these are a brief list. There might be more, but this is just a quick list I got from the internet of genes associated with autism. So there's also drugs that can increase the risk for autism, and this is again not an extensive list, but this just gives you an idea of drugs that are associated with autism and what these drugs and more. I put etc. here because you also have seen that acetaminophen, aka Tylenol, has been associated with autism, and that's because these drugs and other drugs can cause inflammation in the brain, which is going to affect the development of the brain. So a person that has autism spectrum disorder is going to have dysregulated structural or disform morphology in the brain, which is going to account for the behavior that they have. So other factors or postnatal or early life factors, like if you had a premature birth or a low birth weight, along with a lot of other conditions or factors. And there's also a lot of prenatal factors that go into this. So the latest ideas about autism is okay, you can have all these factors, whether it be you had a premature birth and then maybe your mom was on certain types of medication, and then on top of that, you do have genetic susceptibilities in your family. So even when all those things can happen, sometimes you end up with autism, and sometimes you don't end up with autism. So what can be happening that's causing these differences in people who even have the same genetic susceptibilities but different outcomes when it comes to disease state? So the latest ideas have to do with antioxidants because, as I said before, whenever a person comes down and is diagnosed with autism, it's a range of factors, including genetic susceptibility, that causes brain inflammation and disrupts the development of the brain, so you end up with incorrect morphology or structure. So one way to decrease that inflammation would be antioxidants. So inflammation is caused a lot by reactive oxygen species in the body, and your body naturally produces antioxidants like glutathione, which can pick up those reactive oxygen species and inhibit them from giving your body inflammation. So one thing that has been found in the past like 5 years or so is that light can actually affect how much antioxidants your body is making, specifically long wavelengths, or aka infrared radiation. So that's going to penetrate deep into your body, deep into your tissues, and it's going to activate something called cytochrome C oxidase, which is associated with the mitochondria, and that's going to set off cellular signal transduction to activate proteins that eventually lead to the production of antioxidants. And those antioxidants are what can clean up the reactive oxygen species in your body that could be produced from the infant's body not being able to metabolize some drug. So you have reactive oxygen species that are made. It's going to get to the brain, cause inflammation, and if that individual has genetic susceptibility, it could promote the onset of autism. So how does that infrared light, how does that even get deep into the tissues, which leads me to my next slide. So long wavelengths, which is the more red or infrared part of the spectrum of light, can penetrate deep into the tissues compared to blue light or ultraviolet light. And the reason for that is because when you have ultraviolet light or purple and blue, that has a very short wavelength compared to red or infrared light. So one way you can think about this is kind of an oversimplification, but I think it brings home the idea of longer wavelengths being able to penetrate deep into the skin. As you can think about these little bitty dots as atoms, you know that atoms are mostly empty space. So when you have a bunch of atoms arranged in the body, you can imagine how a longer wavelength would have a better chance of missing the atoms and going deep into the skin before it gets absorbed, compared to a shorter wavelength. It has a better chance of hitting an atom, getting absorbed before it can penetrate deep into the tissue where it can activate many mitochondria. So the thing about infrared light is it's not in the modern light bulbs like the LED light bulbs. The best way you can get this exposure is going outside. And these days, we have not only LED lights inside our house, but we don't bring our kids outside as much as we used to for the majority of human evolution. So if you bring your kid outside, they're going to get a good dose of infrared light, and that's actually going to increase their mitochondria to produce these antioxidants. So this is research that has only been like uncovered in the past 5 years. Maybe some physicists had ideas about this a long time ago, but as far as it getting to literature in the medical field, that I've only seen it in the past 5 years. And it's actually kind of funny because a lot of people were skeptical about it. Like when I was in pharmacy school, there was a lot of pharmacists who would make jokes hearing some of this research come out and be like, oh, I guess we're going to put Christmas lights to treat some of my patients. And they were saying that jokingly, but that's actually a little ignorant because they were inhibiting themselves from really understanding how mechanisms work in the body and treatments that could exist in the future. So everyone has to kind of be open-minded about the ways the body works and that everything is connected in one way or another. So another thing I think is everyone's on iPads or TVs these days. We're stuck at home. The kids don't play outside as much. They're just going to be looking at an iPad or a cell phone. So they're not going to get as much sun as kids in the past have, which could be part of the reason why we see an increase in the incidence and prevalence of autism. So moving along, I have the progression influence of autism spectrum disorder. I have them all right here just for a summary again if you want to look at it. But the take home is that health is the responsibility of every human, and everyone is ignorant of something. Ignorant just means you're unaware of something, not necessarily stupid. Stupid means you've heard of something, but you're just kind of refusing to believe it. But everybody's ignorant of something, even if you work in the healthcare field. Therefore, that's why health is really the responsibility of every individual. Because you can't just go on whatever your doctors or your whoever you're listening to, a nurse you talk to or a pharmacist you talk to. It's always better to talk to a lot of different people that have this knowledge about healthcare, and to look for yourself and then talk to the doctors yourself about things you find, because things will evolve in the future. The way they're going to treat these diseases 100 years from now is going to be way different than what we're doing today. And that was my last point, that we're stuck with the information that we currently have. However, if we use our creativity and imagination, then we can understand how these treatments will develop in the future and hopefully start using them as fast as possible so we can be healthy. So thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.